I've been using Samsung's S26 Ultra every single day since launch, and I daily drove the S25 Ultra for well over a year. When it comes to the whole S25 Ultra versus S26 Ultra, which is the better phone argument, I'm completely split between the two. But after using the S26 Ultra more and more recently, it's kind of made me want to start this video off by talking about 5 things that I really miss about my S25 Ultra. And first is the display. The anti-reflective coating on the S26 Ultra is far worse than the S25 Ultra, and it does make a difference. Reviewers are parroting this point for a reason. Second, the more I hold the S26 Ultra, the more I realize these new rounded corners completely strip away that classic premium Note identity that we've always loved. Third is the build materials. Samsung obviously downgraded from titanium to aluminium on the S26 Ultra, but curiously, they didn't downgrade the price tag. And fourth is exactly that, the price. Currently, the S25 Ultra is giving you 95% of the same flagship experience you're getting on the S26 Ultra for a lot less money. And fifth, we're getting diminishing returns here. The S26 Ultra, in a nutshell, has faster charging, a faster processor, the new privacy display, and to be fair, upgraded cameras, but that's kind of it. And the last thing that people needed to be spending more money on with these phones is more performance. Hearing all that, you'd think that I've tossed my S26 Ultra into a drawer and gone back to my S25 Ultra, but I haven't. Because once you look past those 5 downgrades, the S26 Ultra actually fixes a few massive headaches that Samsung has ignored for years. So here are the things that Samsung's actually got right on the S26 Ultra. First, although the new anti-reflective coating getting worse will remain a bugbear of mine, it's made room for the new privacy display feature, which honestly, if I had to pick between the two, I'd pick the privacy display. Second, although the subtle design changes are moving away from that classic Note series identity, I can't deny the S26 Ultra just feels more comfortable in the hand. Which brings me to point number 3. Although Samsung has cheaped out on us with a downgrade from titanium to aluminium, the phone is lighter and we do get better thermals, which helps with battery longevity. Then point number 4, although the price hasn't gone down, it's not gone up either during a period of chip shortages and pretty shaky world politics. And point number 5 is value, which is a difficult one. You see, when you start to look under the rug, you can actually start to understand why Samsung have made some of the decisions that they have. But when it comes to the value of these phones, I mean, it's very difficult for me to sit here and recommend the S26 over the S25. That is, unless you care about cameras. There are 5 key points where the S26 Ultra outshines the S25 Ultra, and one where it doesn't. The first is actually the shutter lag. It was an issue on the S25 Ultra, and it's all but gone on the S26. That and the better processor has shortened the amount of time that we used to get that really annoying refining image pop-up. And second is aperture. This is a big deal, and it is not a small change, as some reviewers are trying to convince you. The S26 Ultra can let around 47% more light in comparison to the S25 Ultra, which equates to better nighttime photography and heavier bokeh effects. And similar to this, at point number 3, Samsung introduced ALOP for the 50 megapixel 5x telephoto lens as well, widening it to f2.9. This means in certain environments, zoom shots could be drastically less grainy than the S25 Ultra. Fourth is horizon lock. When it comes to video on the S26 Ultra, it honestly feels like it's competing with something like the Insta360 X5 or a GoPro when it comes to stability. And fifth is the ever so slightly larger selfie camera that you wouldn't notice with the naked eye, but this size increase has allowed for a slightly wider field of view in comparison to the S25, which is clearly a good change. That all being said, there is actually one sneaky downgrade on the S26 Ultra, and that is a 10 megapixel 3x telephoto lens. Samsung actually quietly reduced the sensor's size, not something drastic, and it probably doesn't make a difference in the real world, but it's a downgrade nonetheless. In a nutshell, the S26 Ultra does have better cameras than the S25 Ultra, and whilst they might not be the best in-class camera phones on the market at the moment, they're certainly one of the most versatile setups out there. Now, the next thing that Samsung have upgraded and downgraded is the display, and there's actually 3 areas where it's got worse on the S26 Ultra. First is the anti-reflective coating that I mentioned earlier. It's way worse on the S26 Ultra, but second is the S26 Ultra has actually been confirmed to be dimmer than the S25 Ultra in lab testing, and you can clearly see this in a normal environment. And third is actually a pretty serious one. It's the reports of eye strain and feeling nauseous after looking at the S26 Ultra's display. Now, if I'm being honest, after real-world usage with both phones, there's a few of those points that I can actually look past. The anti-reflective coating, for example, is a pain. I'm upset about it, but it's also not the end of the world. The reports of eye strain and fuzzy text, I've got to be honest, I've not experienced that. But the S26 Ultra being less bright than the S25 Ultra, I mean, that just makes no sense to me whatsoever. It's not all doom and gloom though, because those 3 drawbacks have actually made room for 4 improvements on the S26 Ultra's display. The first is likely the culprit of some of the downgrades, and that is Samsung's brand new privacy display. It's a genuinely useful feature, it's a world first, it's really cool. Second is the size. The display is ever so slightly larger than the S25 Ultra. And then third is Gorilla Glass. The S26 Ultra upgrades to Gorilla Armor 2, which offers even better scratch and drop resistance than last year's standard Gorilla Armor. Fourth is something Samsung have borrowed from their TV division, and that is a Pro Scaler technology, and it's something that I've actually started to notice more and more. It's taking compressed Instagram reels and actually making them look like they've been filmed in 4K. It's actually really good. Sadly, despite all this, there's still a reason that I look back to the S25 Ultra's display. Now, there's loads going on under the hood with the S26 Ultra, which sounds really impressive on a spec sheet, but in reality, in the real world, the S25 Ultra just looks better, it's brighter, and it's punchier than the S26 Ultra. The caveat to all this is that this is all caused by Samsung's new privacy display feature, which for some people, I mean, that might be a fair trade-off. Now, clearly, I could go around in circles all day talking about the benefits and the downsides to each of these phones, but I actually now want to cover 3 things that really frustrate me about both of them. And first, I'm sorry to bring it up, but there's still no Bluetooth on either of these S Pens. I mean, this is patented, unique technology to Samsung. Why aren't they building on it? And second is the lack of Qi 2 charging and built-in magnets. If you want to make use of magnetic accessories, you can't without having to go out and buy a case. And then you've got the worry of trying to find a good quality case that isn't a scam and is actually going to be able to hold the S26 or the S25 Ultra up. Luckily, there are a few brands out there that have genuinely thought about this and are making cool magnetic systems for the Galaxy series, like Narev, but please Samsung, can we have it built in next year? The other thing that we still not got is my third point, and that is a 7,000 mAh battery. We're still stuck on the very same 5,000 mAh batteries, and although I'll concede there's been improvements, especially with the S26 Ultra, there's brands like OnePlus putting 7,300 mAh batteries out there. It just feels, for the pretty massive price tags, that Samsung could be doing much more, or at the very least, actually listening to us. But about those upgraded batteries, and it's not so much battery, it's more the charging on the S26 Ultra. We've now got 60-watt charging, which is a genuinely useful upgrade over the S25 Ultra. Since going full-time on YouTube, I've been using my phone even more heavily, and I'm not gonna lie, the quick top-ups really are starting to make a difference in my day-to-day routine. You're looking at over 75% in under 30 minutes from nothing on the S26 Ultra compared to 60% on the S25. And on top of that, wireless charging has also got a boost from 15 watt to 25 watt. And I've got to say, the S26 Ultra's battery life has been noticeably better than the S25 Ultra. Samsung have definitely made improvements here. On particularly busy days, I've even been making use of the lower power mode, and honestly, I'm getting home with over 50% battery left. The S26 Ultra is just not failing me throughout the day. I did make similar observations on the S25 Ultra, but that little bit extra that the better optimized processor and One UI 8.5 gives you really does make all the difference. The thing is though, some of this battery optimization that's enabled by One UI 8.5 isn't unique to the S26 Ultra. The S25 Ultra is of course going to get One UI 8.5 and future versions, which is actually a real sticking point for me when comparing the two. One of the best feelings about booting up the S26 Ultra for the first time was that fresh feeling of One UI 8.5, and it was the same on the S25 Ultra when I booted up One UI 8. You get all these fancy AI gadgets that are genuinely useful, like call screening, incredible feature that's brought my incoming scam calls to virtually zero. The S25 Ultra has all that, and we'll get more. What I'm trying to say is that these AI features that Samsung have been working really hard on aren't gimmicks, they're genuinely useful, but they're available on both phones. Many would argue that they are the best part about owning a Samsung phone at the moment, and you're gonna get all of that on the previous version. Which brings me on to the only question that really matters: what should you do with your money? The S26 Ultra is currently around $1,299, and a refurbished S25 Ultra is going to set you back around $780. There will be links in the description and the pinned comment to check the latest prices. That's a pretty big price difference for a phone with a feature that in some cases is quite literally giving people a headache, but there's still a reason that I picked the S26 Ultra. For certain people. If you're on a pretty strict budget and this is an absolutely huge financial decision for you, and you know that whatever phone you pick is going to be your daily driver for the next few years, go for the S25 Ultra. You're not going to be disappointed. You're also going to get up to 6 years of updates from now, so each year it's going to feel like a brand new phone. If budget constraints aren't as much of a problem for you and you are intending on keeping this phone for a very long time, then I'd actually recommend you go for the S26 Ultra. The improved cameras, the better thermals, the battery performance, they're all little quality of life tweaks that if you can afford it, they really make sense, and not forgetting that really awesome privacy display feature. There is of course a third category of buyers here, and those are the people that like to upgrade their phones fairly regularly but don't have the money to just splurge on every single Galaxy. And honestly, I'd say if you're on an S24 Ultra or higher, try and wait it out. I've got a feeling that next year is going to be the year that we see some massive changes on the Ultra. If you've got an S23 Ultra or lower, then definitely consider the S26 Ultra. It's going to be really difficult to be disappointed, but you could also save yourself some money and go for the S25 Ultra, because even secondhand, they're actually holding up really well. I finished the whole year with 100% battery health. You can actually see that in the top left or right corner now. See you in the next one.